Hey, true crime fanatics, this is Claire.
And I'm Andy.
You're tuned in to the Homicide Hobbies podcast, which is a podcast for people who love to hear about the horrendous crimes that people commit. Enjoy.
Welcome to a special Homicide Hobbies episode. This is our Mother's Day. Yay! Happy Mother's Day to all the mommies out there.
Who didn't drown or strangle their children.
Or burn them and maim them to death. All right. So, in case you're having a good morning, I have a case that we're going to discuss today about a mother who doesn't deserve to be a mother. So, our Mother's Day special is going to give credit where credit's due, and that's going to Mitchelle Blair. In 2015, Mitchelle was the mother of 4 kids, and she was being evicted from her home in Detroit due to lack of payment. Mitchelle is 35, and she has 2 baby daddies. Mitchelle has older 2 kids. She has 2 daughters fathered by Alexander Dorsey. She has Gabrielle, who's 17, and Stoney, who is 13. And then Mitchelle has 2 sons fathered by Stephen Barry. You've got Stephen Jr., who's 9, and Matthew, who's 8. And these are their ages in 2015, by the way. So the articles I read stated that both men were absentee fathers. Alexander Dorsey owed Mitchelle $39,000 in back child support. That's a lot of money. Stephen Barry, the father of Mitchelle's youngest 2 children, her sons, owed over $11,000 in back child support.
Where did all this happen?
Detroit.
Oh.
Stephen Barry also has 2 felony charges for felony firearm convictions, and he served a couple years in prison.
Oh, winner.
Yep. Relatives of Mitchelle said Mitchelle struggled to feed and care for her 4 children. She received $771 a month in food stamps. She had Medicaid for all 4 of her children, and she would receive the occasional child support payments from her baby daddies. Mitchelle would often call her relatives and beg for money. Eventually, they were fed up with her lack of effort in holding down a job and started telling her no. So, like all parasites who leech off their others' hard work, Mitchelle cut off her relatives once they told her no more freeloading. And they told her to get a job and go back to school. Which, by the way, she could definitely do that. Because there's so many programs out there to help put like single moms through school, you know? Because it's cheaper. Well, it's cheaper for a single mother to go back to school and for the government to help cover the cost of them going back to school versus mooching off the system forever. Yeah.
I could see that.
So, and granted,
teach a man to fish philosophy.
Right. And granted, I know it wouldn't be easy, especially having 4 kids, but the options are there. There's no reason to not try, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and as the family members, it's never going to be, if she doesn't change something now, she's not going to stop asking for something down the road. The older they get, the more expensive they're going to get.
Yeah.
And at some point, you need to acknowledge this ain't working.
Well, and I know from experience, I have lots of kids, but at some point when they're old enough, her oldest is 17. You can go take some online classes. This happens in 2015. She could do some online classes or a night class or get a job that offers some kind of like further education program. It's just a shame, you know?
Yeah. Well, the desire has to be there. And I guess it was not.
It was not, because she's too busy mooching off the system. Child Protective Services were called once in September 2002 and again in February 2005. There were claims of child neglect and or child abuse committed by Mitchelle. However, she was able to keep custody of her kids. I don't know what came of those cases. It's just they were called out twice. So her 17-year-old daughter told an interviewer that her mother pulled the kids out of school 2 years prior to this, so in 2013.
They just stopped going to school?
Yes, and from what I read, the 17-year-old last attended a Detroit public school when she was in 8th grade. And at this
That
point,
didn't
she's 17.
that didn't
And
raise any flags?
it did not, because parents in Michigan have no obligation to notify their school district or the state Department of Education if they plan to homeschool their kids. But it is recommended to let them know so that there's no suspicion of truancy. But there are no statewide mandates that alert administrators or childcare professionals to check in on the kids. So Michelle never submitted any documentation to tell the State Department that she was homeschooling her kids, and she was able to get away with just yanking the kids out of school. And a spokesperson for Detroit Public Schools cited privacy rights, so she would not confirm if any of the other kids had ever even attended school in the first place.
It seems weird that if she didn't enjoy having them around to begin with, that now she gets them all the time.
So the way I took that is because she got caught twice abusing her kids and neglecting them, it was
Yeah.
easier just to keep their asses at home than risk her getting in trouble for being the piece of shit that she is. Now, let's get back to the eviction of Mitchelle. It was on the morning of March 24th, 2015. A crew shows up to remove the 35-year-old single mother from her property, but much to their surprise, she's not home. So the crew opens up the door and they begin removing the furniture and other personal items out of Michelle's house. The crew eventually finds a deep freezer in the living room. Seems like an odd furniture choice, but whatever. They open the freezer before they unplug it, and inside they find a plastic bag. In the plastic bag is a frozen body of a young teenage girl, later determined to be the remains of Stony Ann Blair. She was 13. So obviously, this crew immediately stops clearing out the house and they call police.
Did
Once
they
the
plug back in the freezer?
well, I said before they unplugged it,
Huh.
so yes, they it's plugged in. But once authorities arrived, they removed Stoney's frozen body from the freezer and they made yet another gruesome discovery: the body of another child, a boy. It was the remains of 9-year-old Stephen Gage Berry Jr. So they just found two of Michelle's kids. Once neighbors learn of Michelle's eviction and they're watching these two bodies of children being hauled out of the house, they quickly alert authorities as to Michelle's whereabouts. She was over at a neighbor's house with her 17-year-old daughter and her 8-year-old son, watching them pull these bodies of her other two kids out of her house. Like, that's sick.
She's an idiot too. Who stays?
I don't. She does. So police arrest Michelle. As soon as they take her away, she proclaims, quote, "I'm sorry." Like, shut the fuck up, bitch.
That's
Like,
how she
seriously?
talked?
No. You can listen to her. I had it. I was going to play it, and I decided I don't want to even hear this woman's voice because this case really gets to me. And when we get into the details of how she tortured her babies, I'm going to try not to let it get to me because it really breaks my heart and it makes me think of my babies and them being hurt. But it took 3 days to thaw the bodies of Stephen Jr. and Stoney so that they could perform the autopsies to even determine the cause of death. 3 days? It's a long time.
Well, they're not going to defrost them in a microwave, Andrea.
Shut up, Claire. The coroner determined the kids had been in the freezer for a couple of years.
What?
Thank you.
Now that I was not expecting.
Years. Like, you want to talk about absentee fathers? You haven't checked on your kids in fucking years?
How about let's rewind? That shit was in the living room.
Yeah, there's that too. It's fucking
Now, I'm just
disgusting
going to
also.
say, I assume you haven't smelled like a vet's freezer, but you can smell that thing when you open the door. Like, it smells of death. I don't care, frozen or not, you can smell it. So I don't see how that being in the living room didn't reek to begin with.
I have no comment because I have not experienced.
I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
animal places. That's it. I mean, I don't keep bodies in my freezer. I mean, unless I've purchased them at the grocery store, those level of bodies. But so the only other
That was a weird
thing
way
I
to
can
put that.
equate it to, well, I was going to say I don't have meat in my freezer, but I do. Just it's not the human variety.
Good
But
to know.
so for bodies in the freezer, the only experience I have is with animals. So even at the pound or anywhere else where they store them during the in between of like the crematory picking them up or them going to medical waste or anything like that,
Hmm.
that freezer stinks. I don't care what you clean it with, you'll never get the smell out. So
Good
I'm
to
just
know.
saying, having that in your living room, this lady had to have no sense of smell or enjoyed the smell of flesh.
Or have anybody that ever came over to her house?
Let's face it, would you be friends with that dingbat?
No, I would not.
Although weirdly, she is at a neighbor's house. How did they not notice for several years? Although I guess she could have told a lie of, dad came and got him.
So she apparently, the neighbors only ever met the kids by waving through the windows. Like they never.
How is that not suspicious?
Don't know. I don't know. So Michelle confessed to murdering her 2 kids, but claims they were demons. Now, granted, when my kids are acting up, I do refer to them as little demons, but it's in a loving way, not a. I think my children are possessed.
If only you could
But
see my reaction. Can you feel it? I'm going to affectionately say you're a demon. Hugs.
well, when Carson goes over and tears up my plants, I'm like, ah, little demon. It's not like
Yes, I too have that struggle with the dogs right now.
right, but it's not on a. I would never hurt him. Granted, I did put cayenne pepper on my plants to get the dog and the child to stay away from said plants, and it seems to be working.
Just have a
I also
minor sinus issue right now. A little bit of drainage going on. Nothing a little bit of drill won't fix.
Mitchelle claimed that her children were demons because she found out they were raping her youngest son, Matthew, which, by the way, it's unfounded. Like, there is no evidence that he's ever been sexually assaulted. And I get it. Body parts heal, and this kid's been, and the bodies had been in the freezer for 2 years. However, even when they talk to Matthew, he doesn't admit to any of it. But Michelle says she came home one afternoon in 2012 to find Matthew stimulating sexual activity with dolls. Like, from what I gather, he was taking the dolls and humping each other with them. Like, you know, being
I
a weird
don't.
kid. You get the gesture of what I'm
You said,
saying.
I do not. We apparently played dollies differently, Andrea.
We played dollies together, so we played
Whoa,
them
whoa,
very.
whoa.
We played just fine, Claire. Thank you very much. I was saying the humping,
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
the gesture of making 2 dolls hump. You, as an adult, know what I'm talking about. Stop trying to play like you don't.
Fine.
We'll get to
Let's
your test
pretend
results
I
later.
understand. Hey. Let's pretend I understand where you're getting at. Go on. So they're demons for doing that?
So, no, but she claims that because she saw Matthew making 2 dolls hump each other,
What year was
she,
this?
2012. So he was 4 or 5. Okay.
Where'd you
So
even learn that from?
I don't know. I don't know. But then I question also. I don't know if I want to share this story or not.
It's a little late. We're 22 minutes in.
No, not this story, but like an actual story from our childhood. If you play stupid to this, I swear to God, Claire.
I make no promises. The test results will speak for themselves later.
This This is gonna sound so fucked up, but you admitted to bedwetting, so I'll throw something out there. I
You
remember there was one
you
time
wet my bed?
no, I said you admitted to being a bedwetter.
Oh, but you were
Anyway,
gonna say that you did it.
shit. This episode's airing on Mother's Day, so nobody's listened to Green River yet. We have a case that's going to air in which Clara defends bedwetting. Something to look forward to.
Awkward. Just gonna say, it happens to the best of us. A serial killer it does not make.
So there was one time when we were kids,
At band
which
camp.
you were like, I think you were 6 and I was like 8 or 9, and I was trying to draw a picture of you, but you had to go potty, so you went and plopped on the toilet in the hallway bathroom, and I sat outside the bathroom, like, in the hallway. The door was open, and I drew a picture of you, which because you
Right,
were
because that
taking
that drawing couldn't have waited a bit. You were so pressed for time. You had other appointments to go do, Picasso.
you didn't care either, okay? So let's not make it
Right, because
weirder than it already is.
I had plans. I was doing my plans. Yours seemed like they could wait.
So I remember drawing this picture, and but then, like, where I drew your legs, I drew a dark triangle, like, right at the crotch spot, and it was supposed to be, like, the dark part of the toilet, and mom thought it was pubic hair, but I didn't even know what the fuck pubic hair was then. I got in a lot of trouble for that, and I had to write sentences and everything, but I didn't know what pubic hair was then. And then there was another time Victor called me a twit, and I said, "Well, you're a twit plot," only because it rhymed, and I didn't know what a twat was, but mom thought I did, and I had to write a bunch of sentences.
You're bad at guessing, I guess.
Well, I was like 8, so I don't
There
remember.
is the time that you wrote shit in the soap.
I wrote fuck. Thank
Fuck in
you.
the soap. That's what it was. Fuck in the soap. You didn't know what that one was. No wonder mom didn't believe you didn't know what twat was, but you know what fuck was.
That was her vocabulary, and I was older. I was like 12
You carved it in the soap. It's a
with my
good thing you
fingernail.
didn't decide a life of crime.
Excuse me. It was my bathroom in my bedroom. If she wasn't bathing in my bathroom, she would have never found the soap bar with the word fuck carved into it because I put that shit down. Like, fuck
What
side
was the
down.
motivation to carve fuck into the soap bar?
I don't know.
I guess it's right up there. What was the motivation to stencil me on the toilet? Claire in her natural state.
But yeah, I got in so much trouble for that. So, but my whole thing is I didn't know what a twat was. I didn't know what pubic hair was. I was a kid,
Well, and if
and
I was younger than you, I didn't exactly just sprout a bush overnight.
but mom wanted to know why I knew what pubic hair was, and it was like,
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
like, and why I would draw a picture like that. And it really, she should have just been mad that I drew a picture of you on the toilet.
We
Well,
all should have been.
so my point being is I feel like there's stuff that kids do that they don't realize they're doing, if
Yeah.
that makes
He could have
sense.
been making him wrestle, and she's thinking he's making him a hump. And
Yeah.
maybe she was sexually abused, so her seeing that triggered some shit, and then she went crazy because he's a boy. You know how it's like the whole genital washing of the Green River Killer guy?
Yeah. You guys will have to
That
tune into that episode. It's
yeah,
pretty good.
that level of something happened to her too for her to hate a penis that much. But maybe because he was doing that with his dolls, even again, if it was not what he was doing, that's what she thought he was doing. So naturally, he's a demon.
Well, he's not the demon. So she
Oh,
demands to know where he learned this. She's getting nowhere. She continues to demand to know this, which, by the way, let's keep in mind this woman's been has had social services called on her for child abuse and child neglect. To which her response to that is to go ahead and pull her kids out of school so no one can witness her said abuse. Matthew supposedly blames his older brother, Stephen Jr., who was only 9 at the time, for doing this to him. And I honestly feel like these kids were afraid of their mother,
so he'd say
and they're
anything.
yeah, so he was just like, I just gonna blame him because I don't know what
Because
else to
yeah,
say.
they're not thinking
So,
long term, they're thinking, "Get out of the shit that I'm in now."
yeah. So Mitchelle says she turns around, goes upstairs to confront Stephen Jr. And he supposedly admits to whatever Michelle's saying. And meanwhile, she's admitted, by the way, that she's punching and kicking Stephen Jr. He's 9 years old. He's freaking 9. And she's punching and kicking this little boy. And then she places a garbage bag over his head until he's unconscious. Like, what the fuck? So this part really bothers me.
The
She
trash
did,
bag didn't?
well, I mean, that all bothers me because I don't think kids should deserve to be hit and abused
Or placed in a trash bag?
or have a trash bag placed over their head or any of that. She then takes her unconscious 9-year-old's body and tortures him for 2 weeks. Some of the torture that she makes this little poor little boy endure, she boils water and pours it on his naked genitals until the skin peels off. Like,
How is
that's
there not screaming?
I you know what? I have no idea. But and then she would continuously beat him and put the bag over his head until he was unconscious. She also forced him to drink Windex.
The fuck?
She would tighten a belt around his neck.
Pull your shit together, Andrea.
Let's talk about your test results. So she tightens a belt around his neck and lifts him off the ground until he's unconscious, taunting him the whole time, saying, "Is this what you like? Is this what you like? Is that you like being choked?" Like, it's so wrong. He's 9 years old. Anyway, she continues to burn this little boy and beat him for 2 weeks. And after the constant torture, little Stephen Jr. dies from the wounds that he endured at the hands of his mother. And I use the term mother very loosely. Mitchelle wrapped him in a blanket and then stuffed him in the bottom of that freezer.
None of the other children, no one, I mean, not that they could do a whole lot, but no neighbors heard anything.
Nobody said anything. And then 9 months later, after brutally murdering and torturing her young son, she claimed she found out that Stony, her 13-year-old daughter, was also raping Matthew.
Hey, I don't know about that.
I don't either. So again, I fall back onto I think either A, Michelle's just psychotic and she killed one child and now she's just making an excuse to kill yet another child.
Well, and I feel like that's likely the case. And even if Matthew says it happened, I could see it be a case of she told him it happened. I mean, that it didn't, and then
At
that
this
way.
point, he's 5 or 6. That's
Well,
Carson's
but you
age.
know, but again, that age is very impressionable, anyhow. So if their mother, I mean, and if you're told something enough, that even if he believes it to this day,
Yeah. Like, okay, well, all you have to do is tell a 5-year-old a story over and over and over again before you can get them to repeat it and they think the shit's true.
yeah. Well, and again, I think that could be the case with this situation that Matthew doesn't necessarily have to be the Looney Tune along with his mother, although shared genes, there's a possibility he is a manipulative little child. But I think it's more likely he was told the things happened because she had the itch in her to murder her children.
So I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but I'll go ahead since you're bringing that up now and tell you about it. But it's later stated by Michelle that whenever she would beat on Stony and Stephen, Matthew would be standing there egging her on, saying stuff like, hit him again, do it again, yeah. And like egging his mom on to beat his siblings. Like 5, 6 years old. I couldn't imagine. But then again, Michelle could just be making all that up.
Yeah.
I don't know. So Mitchelle began starving Stoney and brutally beating her as she did with Stephen Jr. And she would repeatedly pour scalding hot water on Stoney's naked body. She would strangle her with a t-shirt and bring her back and put a bag over her head until she was passed out. We would tell she would tell the other kids that Stoney was the devil. So Mitchelle claims that Matthew told her that Stoney would take her menstrual pad and squeeze the blood into Matthew's mouth.
Fuck is with you? And
They haven't heard the Papin sisters case either, so shush.
another future case. Andrea has an obsession with discussing things people do with menstrual blood. Spoiler alert for everyone who enjoys hearing about that shit. I, unfortunately, am not one of those audience members that enjoy the tales regaled by Andrea and period blood being wiped, smeared, or drank.
I can't help it. I didn't do the
Got
shit.
some weird fetishes, Andrea. I'm just going to say that. Learning a lot today. And I'm going to do some Googling how people skew their test results, just so you're clear.
Oh my gosh, you have issues. So Mitchelle claims that she now learns that Stoney was supposedly raping both Stephen Jr., the dead little boy, and Matthew.
Does she learn it from her dreams?
No, so she apparently forced Stoney to admit that she was raping and beating both the boys. But if you're torturing a kid and beating them, you're going to get them to admit to whatever you want because they're hoping that you'll just stop.
Well, not just children. That's why you can't beat criminals into a confession. Not that I know, but I just hear you can't.
So Michelle eventually ends up murdering Stoney, and she instructs Gabrielle to put Stoney in the freezer with her brother.
Is Gabrielle an older sister?
Yeah, she was 17 in 2015 when the bodies
So
were found.
how is she just sitting around the house watching her siblings get picked off and thrown in the freezer?
So she's also being abused by her mother. So again, I feel like it falls into the category of she's just scared of her mom.
That whack job's got to sleep sometime.
True. It's true. But then again, it's her mom and she knows no different.
I'd be out the window and dangling off the sheets.
Autopsies confirm that Stoney and Stephen Jr. both died due to the severity of the beatings and the burns. Michelle's charged with 4 counts of first-degree child abuse, 1 charge of first-degree child abuse in the presence of another child. I didn't even know that was a thing. And then also with 2 counts of first-degree murder. And eventually Michelle pleads guilty and she's sentenced to life without the possibility of parole.
I'm surprised they didn't try to pull the whole she's not sane enough to be tried, since the whole her kids are demons spiel.
Well, I guess the more you dive into her, they're the devil and all that crap, she's saying that she thinks they're the devil because they're raping their sibling, not that they're actually possessed, or it's not like she believes that her daughter is Satan, but just like that the acts of what she's supposedly doing are the work of the devil kind of deal. Are you writing?
You can hear that?
Yes. Are you writing with your fingernail into some wood?
No.
Sure,
what about that?
So on the day the bodies of their siblings were discovered, the 2 surviving children, Matthew and Gabrielle, received medical exams, and it's found that these 2 kids have been abused throughout their childhood by their mother as well. Doctors found 25 scars and injuries, both old and new, on 8-year-old Matthew's back, as well as loop shaped scars and injuries on his back and butt that are consistent with being whipped by an extension cord. So
The hell?
again, I fall back on I think Matthew just said whatever he wanted to say or whatever he felt he needed to say to get his mom to leave him alone. Gabrielle was asked about the visible cut above her left eye, and the 17-year-old said that her mom had struck her in the head with a 2x4.
Where'd she get a 2x4? I thought I was picturing them living in an apartment.
No,
How
it was
is
a
that
house.
like a casual?
I said it was a house.
Well, an apartment is still a house.
Yeah, but okay.
It's just a
So-
multi-family house. But I still say she's just waltzing around with a 2x4. What for?
To strike her daughter in the face with, apparently.
See, that thing would have disappeared.
Her mother also broke Gabrielle's front tooth from hitting her in the face with a curling iron. Gabrielle also had scars from being burned with hot irons and whipped with cords. So Mitchelle is a piece of shit.
Yes, and I find it hard to believe these surviving children are going to be normal at all.
Well, side note, Mitchelle continued to receive $771 in food stamps and Medicaid benefits for all 4 of her kids until the day of her arrest.
Can't she be charged for fraud for that as well?
Yeah.
Because just like if an adult person died and you start collecting their benefits, even if you're the spouse or still collect any of that, that's not legal.
So Stephen Barry had paid his child support in December. And remember, these kids were killed off 2 years prior. Granted, it's not consistent child support, but whatever. She's still taking the money. Michelle's custody of her living children, the fathers at the time were allowed supervised visitation, and Child Protective Services had sought to terminate the parental rights of Mitchelle and the fathers so that the kids could be put up for adoption and attempt to put them into a better environment, which I did read that the kids were both in school and they were doing great. And I don't know where they're at in life now. I can only hope that they're getting whatever help that they need. But that's Mitchelle Blair. Piece of shit. Happy motherfucking Mother's Day, you piece of garbage.
We don't wish her happy Mother's Day, not at all. But again, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers who have not boiled their children, strangled them, murdered them in any other creative ways. Yay to all of you. And to our own mother who did not drown us during our childhood.
Although, sitting here recounting some of the stories,
You thought there were 5
if
of
she
us?
had a it turns out if she had a different mentality, perhaps I would not be sitting here today.
Yeah, probably not.
All right, let's get on a much happier note here.
Oh, yes, to our test results that everyone has been waiting for. Who's the wacky one or the boldest, the disinhibited, the meanness of the 2 of us?
Not me.
Well, that's a spoiler. So
Well,
Andrea,
you said that you thought it was me, you shit. You
I
threw it
did.
out there. I was going to be the whack job of the 2 of us.
Still say you are, but the results can be skewed is the way I see it. I call a retest. But anywho, so Andrea weighed in at a 53 out of 174. If you haven't been on our Facebook page, we post the link with today's episode. Actually, it was posted on Saturday, but we'll post it with today's episode as well. So if you want to take the test, it's for psychopathy measurements. So the 3 categories are boldness, disinhibition, and meanness. Now, Andrea weighed in again at 53 out of 174, which is low on the psychopathic measurement scale.
And what was yours, Claire?
We're going to go through them.
No, let's go compare. Go together. Yeah.
I was still a low level, by the way, but it was 72. Don't shame our listeners because they might get higher than me. And if it still measures a low, we're in the same category, lady. But in the level of boldness, Andrea was a 34. I was a 29. In the category of disinhibition, Andrew was a 10. I was a 23. If anybody doesn't know what that word means, it's basically your impulsivity or your basic disregard for social convention. And then the
So
last category, meanness. Andrea got a 9. I got a
I'm sorry. You got a what?
20.
One more time.
20. I'm going to work on my meanness, evidently. But I'm going to say because I'm younger than 2 of my siblings, that's why.
What? What? What kind of logic is that?
It's mine. So there. But on that same note, I'm totally going to have Dave do it tonight. And you should have Jason do his because I'm curious. Do opposites attract, or do our levels of psychopathy mirror our significant others? Thank you for listening to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Claire.
I'm Andy.
Follow us each week to get your fix of the atrocities that occur in true crime. And don't forget to tell people about us and rate us if you like us. But don't rate us if you didn't. Just change the channel.